I'm doing this long enough to understand that, we're not going for crowds, because this is for visionaries. Congratulations. Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. This is for visionaries. This is for people who think ahead. And so I know people like, oh, how many followers? No, I'm not doing that. I want to reach to the people like Jonathan's, the investment broker. You see, and for me is even if one person got blessed, that's all what I care about. We're not going for, I know well enough to know that I'm going to be famous. I'm not going to be famous doing this. But I am glad that to see that later on, years from, I had a young man, it was a seminar 11 years ago, and it was in Maryland. He was from a Hispanic church, and he was in college, and the way, he was so excited that it shifted the whole thing, what he was doing, and now he's doing kind of something similar for the Hispanic community. For me, I feel like, this is amazing that he wrote me a letter of recommendation. I mean, it's fantastic. I mean, he's a young guy, and I think he's amazing. He's just like you, a young guy like you, and he did it, and he does that now professionally. He finished his college degree in that area of finance, opened a business, and he's helping people. Fantastic. So this is for visionaries, and I know it. So I'm glad that we have some in here. All right, we're going to start. 10, 9, 8, 7, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, live. Okay, let us pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so much for sending the right people for this time and hour. We need to put into practice everything we know. And please, Lord, bless our efforts to take this to the next level. For the what's coming, the course that's coming after this, that's going to really, we're going to get into the details and really work together to encourage one another for us to go to the next level. Thank you, Lord, for giving us this kind of understanding for this time and hour. And let us give the warning. Let us learn. Let us put into practice. Let us have a walking testimony for other people. So then they can wake up, and the ones who are willing, that they're going to be blessed, because I know that that's exactly what you're going to do in their lives. In Jesus' name we thank you. Amen. Continuing what we're doing, we're going to go now talk about the practical side of it, which already we touched bases on the amortization, loan amortization, and credit card interest. So then you know how it works. And so now you have a visual of it. And talking about visualization, this is how how God, dealt with the children of Israel. At one point, he realized that he needed to give something visual, and that's why he gave the Ten Commandments on, the stones, because he knew that at that point, there is a decay in our mental capacity, and he knew that orally, the information would get lost, would not have the same impact. So he gave the Ten Commandments for them in tables of stone. Did I say that? Yeah, something like that, tablets of stone, yeah. Take the talent from him, give it to, this is from the not-so-good servant. God says, we know the parable that, God gave according to the ability of each one of them. And take the talent from him and give it to the one who has the 10 talents. For everyone who has will be given more, and he will have in abundance. Jesus is all about abundance. Our God is all about abundance, but he needs to know that he can trust us and give the goodies. Whoever does not have even what he has will be taken from him. So God has given a measure of gifts and talents to each one of us, and we need to cooperate with Christ and be co-workers with him in order to make this into an abundance. And that's what he expects of us. But in order to do that, the first battle that we need to fight is against, is against self. I'm missing a T, okay? Sorry. So I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not gratify the desires of the flesh, for the flesh desires what is contrary to the Spirit, and the Spirit what is contrary to the flesh. They're in conflict with each other, so you are not to do whatever you want. So God is warning us that there is a battle going on against self. And Ellen White says that our worst enemy is unconsecrated self. That we, united with Christ, the weakest of us, united with Christ, Satan is not match. He's not a match. Our worst enemy is unconsecrated self. When you're unprincipled, you don't accept the principles of God, you don't want to go through the discipline, that's when God says that, unconsecrated self is our worst enemy. Because it is true. Next one, visualization. That's what I told you about, the tables, I'm saying it again, tablets of stone, and God gave us the Ten Commandments because he knew that we needed at one point to be visual. We are visual. Choose out 2 stone tablets like the first ones, and I will write on them the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Remember what happened when Moses was upset that the golden calf, he broke the first ones. Fix these words of mine in your hearts and minds. Tie them as symbols on your hands and bind them on your foreheads. Teach them to your children, talking about them when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you get up. Write them on the door frames of your houses and on your gates. That's why Numbers, when it comes to stewardship, at one point, you have to move to the number crunching. You have to sit down and count the cost and see. And we're going to do this with the car purchase, which is one of the biggest money blunders that people make. Very, 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 unwise choices we make with cars. I understand. I've done it myself. And we're going to see the numbers. And when you see the numbers, it changes the way you make decisions about this. This is another thing that, we spend the money without thinking, and then we finance for 5 years, and then we get another financing for 5 years, and then before you know it, you're for 20 years financing cars. It's pathetic. I don't understand how we do that, but we do it because we are in the here and now. We want to see the result right away. We don't care about the maintenance and all that kind of stuff. So let us move. Need of a system. That's what Ellen White says, that even she says that there is a need of a system. You cannot just be talking about stewardship principles. You need a system, and that's what she says. But many, very many, have not so educated themselves that they can keep their expenditures within the limit of their income. They do not learn how to adapt themselves to circumstances, and they borrow and borrow again and again and become overwhelming debt, and consequently, they become discouraged and disheartened. This is a situation, I know I was in a conference where it's all about ministries. And there's a lot of people that would love to be in ministry, but because now they're in debt, student loans, whatever, they cannot be in ministry. Somebody has to pay that off. You see, and she's, alerting us because they don't think about it, they don't adapt to circumstances, and they borrow and borrow. And I'm telling you, parents, your kids will be bombarded by the minute they hit college. The credit card companies will be there. And even the student loans, did you know that they can just get those student loans to buy clothes? Did you know that? Because clothes is part of what they need to survive. So they can be, and I'm going to talk about this, we're going to get into that detail. So what we don't want, look at what happened. The kids go into debt, they get out of college, they have a debt. And then they buy the car, they have another debt. And then they get married, buy a house, another debt. They have their kids, they raise everybody, and then they go into the debt, student loan, and it starts all over again. It's disheartening. So in order to avoid that, see, this is the thing. The Bible says something that the prudent man, he watches and he's, he looks at it and he, take a look at it and he thinks through. But the fool sees it and doesn't care, and passing is punished. What is punished is that you didn't, before you got into it, you didn't evaluate the cost. And once you're in it, you're in it. So we should think before, ahead of time. All should learn how to keep accounts. Some neglect this work as non-essential, But this is wrong. All expenses should be accurately stated. Like I said in the morning, the steward that says that they don't need a budget is equivalent to saying that is a Christian who doesn't need the Bible. You're steward, you need the budget, because this is how you compute your expenses. And they should be done accurately and consistently. We have a system at home that's not very complicated, and we do it. And the interesting part of it, this is how we resolve all of our financial issues, because we sit down for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. We look at it and say, this is where we are. This is what's going to happen. These are the funds. And this is what we have to do this week. Right? Right. We're on the same page mentally. We visualize it. The goal is the same for one and for the other. And we are as a team. It's not about my money. It's not about your money. It's about the family's money. You see the difference? And then how we're going to do this, make this happen. It's not what you want. It's not what you want. It's what we can do. It changes everything. All these agreements over money, they end right there. It's not me saying no. It's what we can do. It was what is available. And this is how it cuts back on a lot of conflicts in marriage. And we're going to go over that too. You ought to be careful that your expenses do not exceed your income. Something so basic, right? Bind about your wants, self-control, self-discipline. I have, some kind of allowance because I work. It's just that I don't get paid. I have an allowance, and I stay there. And with that money, I can do whatever I want. I don't have to do explaining to anybody. And this is the way couples should do. He has his own spending money. She has own spending money. Nobody needs to explain at that level. But at one point, any purchase above a certain amount, they need to get together and discuss and agree to it. This is how adults fix, the problem. So the numbers are the numbers. They're going to tell you what the situation is. And this is how you resolve conflicts. At one point, like she's saying, we need a system. And this is where we're going to talk about the plan of action. Is actually a financial x-ray. We're going to do the little exercise right here where we're going to come up with a little diagnostic budget. It's not the budget process, but it's something for you to see how it works. What you think you spend and what actually happens and how this affects our well-being. And again, this is directly related to finance, is directly related to your well-being. It's your mental health, emotional health, because there's nothing that causes a lot of havoc on your well-being than having financial issues. It's there, you're embarrassed, you can't tell anybody, and it's there. So, where your heart is, where your treasure is, your heart will be also. Let's see. Let's suppose here's another thing. Oh, I didn't change it from Portuguese to English, but here it is. Let's suppose that the income is the green part and the expenses is the blue part. Don't get worried about the numbers. The numbers is just to make the graph work. But here's how it works. We have a life. Let's suppose that we start working at 20 years of age and we go up to 79. And of course, at 20 years of age, you're going to be having income right here, and you have expenses very close to your income because you're just starting out. You want to buy this stuff. I have, a 16-year-old. He wants to buy the camping gear, the sneakers, and all that kind of stuff. So you're right here, and then you turn 24. You study. You don't have, much income. 26. And then 29, and see how the expenses, you have kids, you buy a house, you have kids, you're right here, and your expenses are very close to your income. You're almost maxed out. But the ideal is that eventually, you have, you pay off your house, you have your cars paid off, you don't have, you cash flow the student loans for your kids together with them, not only by yourselves, they also helped, and eventually your needs are gonna start going down because you don't need many things anymore. You're just going down the cycle of life. However, this is a graph. This is not how life works. There are many things that can, cause havoc in your financial situation. And I think that after we go over then, you see how grateful we should be to God. Because so many things could go wrong. So many things. And let's explore that. Life events, we call life events. New job is a good thing unless you're moving to another state that can cause a lot of, extra expenses. Moving to a new area, like you're gonna have moving expenses. Retirement, your life is gonna change after retirement. You have to have less, expenses, and you gotta simplify a lot. Disability, you can lose your capacity of earning income. Raising children is gonna limit what you can do with money because raising children is very expensive. And one of the things that I want to talk about is that sometimes, because you homeschool, people think that we did it for financial reasons, but that's not true. Right now is our largest budget line item in our budget is education. And people think, oh, no, they're doing no, it was not. It was never about the money. And people are going over this right now. Mortgage, when you sign up for a 30-year mortgage, it causes your life to change, yes. Birth, marriage, or divorce, it does happen, life events that sometimes we have no control over. Aging, parents' care, and I help my parents, not my father, because my mother passed away. We help here and there. They're not dependent on us, but it's good to know that, they've done this for us. So, and I think it's amazing that we can give it back and help them. He's totally independent, and I want to keep him that way until he can. And disease or death. Those things affect your financial situation immensely. So many things can go wrong, and still God is there for us, upholding us, providing for our needs. Can you guys hear? Yeah. For some reason, it cut off. Não sei o que aconteceu. Yeah, there you go. Okay. This is what changed everything for me. When I read the book, God's Plans for Finances, he talked about how to spend the 90%, the 100%. And interesting enough, I realized that he said 10% goes to oh my goodness, I didn't change that. It's the tithing, okay? 10% is the tithing. 20% is short and long-term savings. And 70% is your income. So in other words, what he's saying is that do not fool yourself to leave it on the 90%. Start saving some money for short and long-term savings, car repairs or buying a house or whatever. So if you learn how to live with 70% of your income, you're going to be doing yourself a favor. That's what you should concentrate, not 90%, 70%. And that is critical because if you bought a mortgage and there are people that are 50% of their income, they're already behind in a lot of things because they never sat down and count the cost. So we do these things before. And so this helped me a lot. I don't know if you noticed that offerings is not in here. Guess what? Offerings comes from, this is where you start giving. You see? Because 10% is required. You can see the mouse? Okay. Here is where you start giving. This is required. This is you, preparing for a financial situation. You need to buy a car in a year. Your car is acting out, or you have repairs, something like that. But it's right here that you actually start giving. See it? You don't see that until I thought it was very interesting. When I saw this the first time, I said, where's the offering? Well, the offering is here. So it's right here. I didn't realize I didn't. Yeah, I did not. Again. Sorry about that. I had to translate this. Now, and then, we have this income distribution model example. For example, I just made up numbers. But you see here, according to this is your total net income, 79%. Well, according to that example, it should have been what? 70%. So you need to go over your numbers and see where you need to cut back So then you can transfer that 9% to the savings right here. See? By then, your savings would be what? 14%. Do you see how the debt, this is debt, okay? Do you see how the debt competes with the savings? If you didn't have the debt, all this money here will be savings. This is the tithe and offerings. Together, 11%. It's just numbers, okay? There's nowhere in the Bible that says how much you should give in offerings. It's voluntary. So again, immediately, when you have your numbers, and we're going to do this exercise together, immediately you see right away that according to that pattern, you should start, working in this area in order to free resources to put it right here. Got it? Visual, totally visual. Sorry about that is not in English. Okay, and again, you see here, usually this is housing, is usually the biggest, chunk in everybody's budget. So imagine not having a mortgage or a rent. Is that a dream? Can you imagine how much, you're going to be saving? So you see, and that's the goal here. Once you get rid of the debt, this is the debt, this is the saving, and this is the tithe and offerings. So, and then the other, stuff. So you should always, and the reason why it's 30% is that here's where people go wrong when they buy a house. The realtors, I don't know why they do that. They say that you should qualify for 30% of your gross income. Who pays bills on gross income? Nobody. So you're already behind. You see? You should go for your net pay. I said you should calculate 25 to 30% of your income in housing. Sometimes it's possible, sometimes it's not possible, depending on the location. We know that in the great, metro areas, it's very, very expensive. It depends on where you are. But here in Florida, it's very doable for you to be doing less than 30. Because look at that, the utilities, look how big that is. See? Internet and internet, phone, water, whatever. So if you can control this, and this is what we decided when we saw this, I said we're going to go downsizing in-house. Maybe not in-house, but in pricing. We got bigger house sometimes, but the price was less than the previous house. So because we saw this, and I said, we're not going for that. Do you see how seeing it changes things? Completely. Let's do this. I'm not going to go to student loans now. Let me go and do this on the spreadsheet. Budget model presentation. Here you have in English. Sorry. So this budget this is not a budget. What we do here is a diagnostic budget. It just quickly shows you where your money is going. And it's just an example. The numbers are made up. It's just for you to see the graphs. And you see here the housing. Blow up a little bit. Now you see the housing, utilities, maintenance. Is a lot. Buying a house is a huge responsibility. So, utilities, maintenance in the house. This alone is all about the house. Tithe and offerings, others, miscellaneous, clothing, transportation, medical expenses, recreation, education, food, and debt reduction plan. Let me take this out of there. And savings. Again, we should strive for how much in savings? 20%. Right now we're at 5. The other 5 is debt, so 10% right here. So we need to work in these areas here to find out where you can reduce and change in order for you to get to those numbers. As you can see it in here, this is, I'm going to zero out everything so then we can, start putting numbers in there. But the budget, here's how you spend the 90%. So the tithe and offer should be in between 10 to 15% or more, depends on how much more you want to give. Debt reduction plan right here is 10%, savings 10%. Housing should be between 25 to 30% of net pay. Maintenance 4 to 5%. Here's what I think the book, failed. The book said that, Utilities should be included in this 25 to 30%. Sometimes it's not possible, depending on where you're living. It's not possible. So I kept it separate. But at the end, it has to be 100%. And then utilities, food, 15, okay, where's the food? Food, right here. 15 to 20%. Another thing that I thought was strange, education was in miscellaneous, which the author is assuming they were sending our kids to public school. It's not the reality for some Seventh-day Adventist parents. So you adjust the number, you have to take in other categories in order to get to 100%. Medical expense, clothing, and all of that. And then you have, these are according to the majority of the books that I have read on the subject, these are the suggested way for you to spend based on percentages, which is genius because if we're talking about a percentage in terms of the tithe, we should talk about a percentage about the rest. So it changes everything. And so now, look at this column here, income distribution. Now you can see it, the 79% in here. We got to move somewhere. We got to take it somewhere or increase the income. You get a side job, a side hustle. Now with the pandemic, became very, very easy to get a side job. So you either decrease the expenses or you increase the income. And here it is, debt reduction plan, tithe and offerings and savings. You are here, but the goal is to get here. And this is how you compare. Okay, this month, let's see where we are. 79, this and this, and okay, we're not at the target. The target is to get to that level. Do you understand? Okay. Now, let's do, something here. We're going to talk about numbers here. Let me just get this all out. Delete. You see, you lose everything in here. January the 20th here. Okay, I used this in 2013. Okay. I want you to participate now, okay? Let's put numbers in here, well, what you think it is. First of all, let's see what the gross income here. Give me numbers here. I don't know. Give me numbers. Let's put numbers in this, just to come to life here. How much gross income? 5,000? Let's do another, 5,000 was there. So let's do something else. How much? Gross income? 7,000? Okay. Yeah, per month. 7,000. Net income will be minus 30%. Let me just get this thing here. Oops. Times, okay. Where is it here? See, this is a new computer. Okay, so it would be 7,000 minus 490. I'm trying to compute it's just, it's not exactly, it's just we're trying to see what the net would be. Okay, can I do that? I know what I'm going to do here. Hold on. Okay, back here. 7,000. $7,000, right? Okay, there you go. All right, that's your net income. It's not exact, but we're just just making up the numbers here. So the variance here will be 7,000 minus. Okay, this would be supposedly the taxes. Okay. All right, so now let's see, put tithe and offerings. So now it will be what? How much is a tithe and offerings? How much? 700 plus how much? 700 is the tithe. How about the offerings? 17? 17. Okay. All right, see, I start creating the graph. Okay, debt reduction plan, your car payment. No, car payment is transportation, but okay, debt reduction plan. Vamos botar 500? personal loans, credit cards, I don't know. Savings, should it be, whatever we can do it right now is 500 too. Let's see. Housing, how much would be housing? 1,500? 1,500. See how I start creating the graph. Maintenance, 100. Utilities, 300. Food. Wow, this is a single person. Single person. It cannot be. Family of 4, family of 3. 2,000 food? Wow. I'm gonna go eat at your house. God, wow, that's amazing. 31%. Wow. Education. No, now he's on the hook for that. Education. Education. What school? Adventist school. Adventist school. 1,000. That hurts. Recreation. 300? Come on. Medical expenses. 400. You see, we passed already. You see? We're already 7,000. We only have 6,510 on income. So what else? We don't go anywhere. We don't pay the insurance of the car. We don't pay the car payment. We don't pay the gas. We don't buy clothes, and we don't have haircuts. We're going to the mail. Whatever. Now, stop. You see, let's take the food. You see, this is what happens. People think it's one thing, but when they start doing it, it becomes alive. It's different. So I will show this, my 1,200. Let's put it here. See, that's what you have to do in real life. You have to go back now, car payment. Let's see, 300 plus, no, there's no $300 car payment anymore. 400 plus insurance, 150. Okay, no, let me go back here. Okay, yeah. 150, gas, 200. What else? The 200 is gas. You need gas to get the car going. And then what else? Maintenance, $50, no, $60 for the oil change. I don't know. Something there. See? We passed already. So you have to go back and say, oh, you cannot change the food again. It's always the food, folks. It's the only thing you can tighten is the belt. It's the only thing. Hey, Hannah, see? By the end of it, we're going back to the 200. We're still over. We're still over here. Savings. That's the next thing that goes, the savings, 200. You see? Eating out. You know, that's right. No, this is the food without eating out. You see? And then clothing, nada. Nada. Zero. And then, you know, others. You cannot have a haircut. You cannot have, what else? Nothing. Nothing. Okay. Then increase the savings. Now you got to have 100 in here. And there's always something that shows up. And that's the others. It's miscellaneous. Personal care, haircuts. No, it's included in the food. You see, isn't that crazy? You see, here's the thing. This is the 4 walls. We call this the 4 walls. It's a very basic. At one point, we realized when you go to Walmart, you see a bath rug. That's not food. You see, and then you start buying other things, and you come home, you cannot call that food. So we start going over the receipts, and we separated the food items from the household items. And that's when we realized that we're spending more on household items than in food. You only find these things because you're doing this. If you're not doing, it's just you keep on going. You don't know. You see things, you want it. Oh, I like it. Go ahead. Yeah, it's falling in behind here. I don't know what to do. It's, okay. Oh, got up.
Yeah, it got tangled.
Yeah. So do you see it? You know, you think it's one thing, and you just start throwing the numbers in there, but all of a sudden you realize, and you see the car here, 810 is very expensive. Housing. There's no way, fixed expense. You have no way of changing that. You see savings. Look at the savings now here. It's nothing, it's 3%. Do you see it? Voila, it's nothing, 3%. This, in a mechanical problem in the car has, is not going to cover it. That's why it's so hard to build the emergency fund, folks.
The debt reduction plan, it's that extra that you're paying.
Extra. Let's suppose you have a balance in a credit card.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
So you could, for this example, I guess, if you're paying $500 extra, like on top of the monthly payment, you lower that.
You can, but then you're always going to, you see, this is the thing. You're always going to be in debt, and when an emergency occurs, you go back to the debt. And then you find this doesn't work. I'm not doing it anymore. The reason why the credit card is really, really a downer is because you never build the emergency fund. You have to build the emergency fund first. Because at the first emergency, you say, this doesn't work. You see? And it's so hard to get at that point, that leaving that deficit spending behind you is so hard. Okay, education, you guys are not there, so you're not there yet, you see? You're going to put, 250. Or maybe it's a student loan, I don't know. We're not counting, that's the thing, we're not counting the student loan here. You see, when you put it, a student loan becomes a budget, it's really, really hard. It's really hard. But do you see, the idea to do this exercise, this is not the budget, this is the diagnostics. You think what it is, but then you put the numbers and you're like, oh, wait a second, no, I have to reduce here, reduce there, and that's the point of it. For you to see what the reality is, and then, compare to the objective, see how far off you are. Let's suppose get here. Oh, you see? 86% of the income you're spending, and so you are above what you should have been because, you're spending here, and you're consuming all of your income and not preparing for a rainy day. And when you start seeing it that way, it's going to change how you see things. Any questions? It's very straightforward. Any questions? The budget process is different. The budget process, you're going to have to do 3 months in order to calculate the average of your spending. You're going to see what happens in a month. So then when you budget, it's going to be very close to what actually happened. And then you have to calculate, here's what it is. For example, and this is there are some apps that do that. You're going to see what you budgeted and what the actual was. You see? And you say, oh, pretty much housing, I'm staying here and everything, but, oh, that didn't work. That I kind of, went overboard. And then you adjust. You start making the adjustments based on facts and not wishful thinking. This is what it is. This is what we need to do in order to change it. Any questions?
Someone online is asking if you can repeat any question.
Oh, sure, because you guys are not on the mic. Absolutely.
Yeah, we have the mic.
Yeah, Mike King. Yeah, when anybody has a question, we're gonna, have the mic on so then we can, record it. So, any questions? Comments?
You could just repeat the questions.
Oh, okay, sure. I can do that too. Yeah, sure. Questions? Comments? Criticisms? Suggestions? This is real life. And this is another way you become an adult. So go ahead. Buy a more reasonable car. We're going to go over the car. We're going to go over. I usually don't talk about the car because that's a very sensitive topic with the...
Your extreme expensive ways of living, bring your standards down to where they're living in a reasonable manner.
Here's the thing. When people come to us, you got to go with what they have. They have already committed themselves to a certain car. They already have committed to the mortgage. You see what I'm saying? Is damage control And there are people, we just graduated, I just graduated. Finally, I bought, we bought, a few months ago, our first car cash. We graduated. An electric car because of the gas prices, used, reliable. Hybrid, yeah, hybrid. And, we have seen how it has helped us. But you know what? We went with what was necessary. Simple car, compact, hybrid, used, you see, lower insurance, everything. Because we did it that way, the Lord, we pray, and the Lord sent us straight to the car that we needed. No, we had, we want a reliable car, and we did all of our research. And then he sent, here's the car. And then I even had, it was near the Valentine's Day, I had bowls, and I put, the bowls, on the car, because when you buy a new car, then you get, and I did it, and I took a picture of it, because it was the first time we graduated, finally. We bought a car cash. In the U.S., there's no excuse for people not to buy a used car.
Online, there's a question, and I don't know if you want to answer this now or later. What about taxes? Not everyone gets a tax return. Could you talk a little bit about how
Tax return, is you talking about, once a year, what, tax refund or tax return? I'm not on this.
Some people have to pay taxes.
Oh,
when
I
that
see.
comes, so-
Here's the thing, a very good question. This is a very good question. The thing is, people say, oh, I don't have, a fixed income. I have a business. But you have fixed expenses, don't you? So you have to do this because you will see with time that there is a pattern in your business because your expenses will be there and you have to meet those expenses. So everybody should be doing this. And here's the thing. When you start doing the budgeting, you already is going to start budgeting for things in the future, which is called sinking fund. You say, oh, okay, I'm going to have, on average, for the first 6 months of the year, I make this much in my business, so I'm going to have that much tax bill. So I'm going to divide that within 6 months, and I'm going to start setting aside the money for when, it's going to happen. The idea is for us to be ahead and not, behind, above and not beneath. So when you start doing this, you're going to factor in the fact that you have a business that goes up and down. But at the end of the day, you have the bills to pay, don't you? You do. So at least you work what you had on the fix, and then, by doing that, you will know exactly what your expenses are. So when you make a big contract or you have a big sale, you know exactly where the money is going to go. Very different than just, okay, I have to pay the bill. You have to be ahead of the game. It just, it just helps you. Any more questions?
It's not really a question per se, but just a suggestion as far as the presentation is given. I noticed that it's a stewardship financing. The way it's presented seems like it's more like what you were talking about, how it's more like you're already in a situation where it's more of an emergency fix kind of a situation. I noticed that you mentioned things like short-term and long-term savings, but one thing people often forget about is things like 401ks, IRAs, long-term savings, how if you don't start on those things early enough and dedicate a large portion of your budget to those things, you can't build them up over time because, like you said, it's time investment.
Yeah.
In the long term, it's time
In the
investment.
long term, yeah.
And so people often forget how important it is. Like, for example, when you go to Starbucks and you spend $6 on a Starbucks coffee,
Every
and if
day.
you did that every day, and you spent, say, $200, $300 just on Starbucks coffee in a month or a month and a half, if you put that money into your retirement, and how you did that month after month, and as the interest in your investments grew, it builds up over the years into a very, very large sum of money. And so...
Yeah. The reason, let me tell you, it's a very valid point, and it's compound interest. Do you see where the angle that I'm coming from? I show how it happens with the credit card. Why is that I'm not at that level yet? Because I deal with reality. People cannot talk about investments, and this is the way, it's hard for people to understand this. First things first. If you have debt, what's the point of having investment?
I understand that.
I know that people feel good about themselves when they say that, and the same way the compound interest works against you when you have debt, it works for you when you have investments. But the reason is we deal with the situation as the American population is. And the fact is, in this pandemic, 78% of Americans do not have $400 in cash to deal with an emergency. So what's the point of talking about investments when we're, burdened with debt? First things first, let's get rid of the debt. Once you don't have your money bleeding out in that way, you're going to start building wealth. Here's how it happens. Emergency fund first. Because if you're in debt, an emergency happens, you're going to be even in more debt. Emergency fund, build an emergency fund, pay off debt, and build wealth. But for us to get to that point of building wealth, we have to go through this, and this is the hardest thing ever. For me, is when somebody talks about investments, my first question is, do you have debt? Yes, so why don't you pay the debt first? You're going to build wealth much faster. See?
The only comment that I have to build upon that is that people often have a misconception of credit cards in that they should treat them as a debit card and immediately pay them off, and that you should never. Because if you don't pay them off that same month, you're basically taking out a high-interest microloan. And so you should never carry a debt on them, period.
And that's why, we show how it works against people for them to be aware of it. If they're not aware of it, unfortunately, this is human nature. We sit back and say, oh, okay, I'll pay. Oh, it's just a little interest. I'll pay next month. That's how we are as in human nature. We push it forward as if we have all the time in the world when we don't. Our time is finite. And yes, you're right. The sooner, the better. But tell a 16-year-old that is, dreaming about the $200 sneakers that instead of putting the $200 in the sneakers, you put it in an investment fund. I mean, they don't want to do that, you see. And we ourselves, I didn't do it either. I was young, and nobody taught me these things, and that's why we teach them. In fact, we're going to get to the finances with kids. When you start very young, they're going to have this idea. They may make different choices, bad choices still, but at least they have been warned. Any other questions? We're moving forward. So let me go back to the student loans. Oh, this one is really hard. Let me see if I can go, here. Yeah. Unfortunately, I have to go, Unfortunately, I wish, people had thought about it again, sit down and count the costs before they got into college. And we're seeing the results of it now, $1.7 trillion in student loan debt that the government doesn't know what to do with it now. They're deferring the payment and the interest, but eventually, let me tell you something about student loans, is the only debt that even through a bankruptcy, you can get rid of it. You can go to a personal bankruptcy, but you cannot get rid of the student loan. And there are people, they want to go to Ivy Leagues. I've seen, these are cases, $260,000 for an education for you to have a starting salary of $40,000. When this person, it's almost like this person mortgaged their whole future. And for decades, they have to pay for this. So what's the point of not, trying not to, of course, this is before the fact, but we'll deal with it afterwards. Plan of action, and this is based on this book, Debt-Free Degree. Very good book, Debt-Free Degree. And he says that when you start talking about your kids about this is when they're on 7th grade. There are there are even scholarships that they can apply to when they are on 7th grade, sophomore years, junior years and all of that. So, and career planning. All that kind of stuff that you should do so then your kid not come and say, oh, this is not the course that I wanted. I want to take another course. You see, all of this you have to do beforehand for you not to get, in there and they say, oh, this is not what I want. Very good book. It gives you, some strategies about how to go to school, without debt. But here's my point in it. Parents should never, this time and age, they should never, ever finance their kids' education 100%. Whatever is given for free has no value. They're going to be having fun, they're going to miss classes, they're going to get bad grades, they don't care. This is what this guy did. He had a full ride scholarship, but once he got in college, he realized it's cool, made a lot of friends. He got $15,000 in a student loan for clothing, opened a credit card and spent $10,000 on furniture. He wanted to impress people. And then his grades start suffering because he kind of, was clowning around, that's what he says. And then he got kicked out of the school, lost the scholarship. And then his parents said, very well, you're going to fix this. And then he went to Walmart and slept in his car until he got his life back together. Good parenting. Bailing them out is a disservice you do to them. It's hard. As a parent, I know it's hard. But here it is. Everything that you give to a young adult at that point, it has no value unless they have skin in the game, unless they have an investment in it. And the way they can contribute to that is grades, number one. No excuse, no excuse. Grades. They can apply for scholarships in the school that they're going. They usually get it because they're young. And they need to make a contribution. And I believe in joint effort. Like, we cash flow some, you are responsible for some, and then otherwise, there's now even Parent Plus. The parents take the loan. That is not nice. I don't think, I don't know, I don't want to say that we're not going to do it. But this is no point. You see, this late in the game, the parents take upon themselves to do that. And unfortunately, this is, I think, is one of the biggest problems in America today. How can we be doing this to children? And here's how inflation works. It was hard going to school, but there are no loans. Once the government starts giving the loans, the universities increase the tuition to skyrocket levels. You see, that's what inflation is. So now I'm in school, but I draw the line. I'm in school right now, and I said, I don't want to get in debt. I got a side job, folks. If I draw the line, we're paying for the school for one of our kids, we live on one income, and I want to go to school, and I draw the line, I got to do something. And I found a side hustle, even though I'm kind of trying to open my business. And there's another thing. People, why didn't you ever open a business? I said, well, but I'm in school. When I'm in school, forget about the business. I'm doing these baby steps because I don't have time. And another thing is the educational system kills the passion of learning. The way they set up their studies is horrible. But this is the stop. So draw the line and do what you need to do. Get a job for your young kid, and they work part-time. There is one kid in this church that's doing exactly that. He is the master of his destiny. His Grace's son, Luke. Yeah. He is the master of his own destiny. He is the self-started. He's the self-motivated. So he is, he's doing everything that is in his power in order to get out of, school debt-free. Proof is in the pudding. So we should, this book I recommend. There are a lot of, things that you can do, and one of them is just like student loans of any kind, avoid it. Relying on debt forgiveness. I've heard this, from a person who just graduated from the criminal system. She's like, criminal justice, and she's like, oh, you know what? I'll wait for 25 years, and then the government is going to forgive my loan. And I was like, what? How can a Christian be saying something like that? You see, and I find it, disturbing that people are relying on a government that doesn't know how to do basic math in order to forgive their loans. Is 1%. Do your research. The people that are getting the forgiveness is very hard to get. It's 1% of the whole thing, and it's very hard to get. Using credit cards, that's another thing. Financing a car. Paying for your students' college, that's for the parents. Education before taking care of yourself financially. By the time they finish, we're what? We're what? So the parents is just like the oxygen mask in the airplane. First you put it on yourself, and then you save your kid. And this is exactly the same thing. You got to set yourself financially first, because they are young. We're not young. They are young. They have a whole life ahead of them. We don't have that. Believing that a dream school is worth at any cost. No, Ivy League, just the example I gave, $260,000 to a career with a starting salary of $40,000. And I see this in the Dave Ramsey program. I see that all the time. There was this, you see, this is how people are. Because here's what happens. As soon as you finish college, do you want to pay off debt? No, you're going to have fun. I finished this. And then they defer, pay the minimum. And I see people paying this for decades and decades, and the money tripled because of the interest. They are mortgaging their future forever. They cannot go on mission. They say, oh, I'm going to take a year off. How am I going to take a year off? You have to pay off your student loan. That's what happens. You see, they are mortgaging their future. So, but I know and then, I know, you see the money. Here's the money. I was like, what? And then I realized, no, I'm going to pay off this thing. I'm not gonna do this. I didn't fall for that one. I think nobody should. But here's the point. It's taking longer. But I'm not in a hurry. Believing, this is from this book. And I strongly, there are ways you can apply for scholarships, but it's finding a needle in a haystack. It is true.
I think there's a lot of...
There is a question in the back.
No, it's not a question, it's just basically a suggestion. There's a lot of students going to college that aren't going to use their college, and vocation is paying a lot if you go into a good vocation.
Yeah.
There's actually a shortage in vocation. So I think getting educated on what you're really gifted for and what you're going to have an investment in your future that's going to pay for the best, and you pay less outside of scholarships. That's just something I've seen over the years from hindsight.
And it's sad because the credit card companies are right there, and is on a very vulnerable age. And so I have it in here, something that, from this book also, explaining, what your budget will be, trying to show this to the young people. For some reason, okay, there you go. Aqui, you have three options, like, let's suppose number one, you are drowning in student loans, and let's suppose you have a 35, this is the assumption here is starting salary of $30,000, tax bracket 12%. Housing is actually $1,255 per month, but you can see here that in the housing here is only here that is 125, I don't know why, but here is divided in two, which means you get a roommate. Yeah. But this first option, you get your net pay, and then you don't give any money because you don't have anything to give, food, utilities, housing, if you're living by yourself, gas, transportation, car insurance, student loans. This is the first option. You have a lot of student loans, and you have to pay that back. And then nada. No car, no maintenance, no credit cards, no cell phone, no health, doctor's visit, clothing, entertainment, restaurants, nada. And you're still with a deficit of $306. Number two, the average. This is what happened. The average, according to the average student loan payment, which is $393, which is an average. I'm pretty sure it's more than that. And then you still don't have anything to give, $242 in food, utilities, housing, you have a roommate, you have the student loan, you have the car loan, and then you only have savings of $100, and then here, you have no clothing, no entertainment, no restaurant, and no birthday and Christmas for your poor mother that may sacrifice a lot for you. But then there's the option of the debt-free degree, which is you have the same kind of money, but all of a sudden you have money to give. Why? Because you don't have student loans and you don't have a car loan. You bought a very, very, inexpensive car.
Just a kind of a question, comment as far as you said avoiding student loans and avoiding any of that, which I completely agree. I graduated myself debt-free.
Amen.
I still haven't gotten a job in that field, but I graduated debt-free. But my comment about the debt-free, the student loan part is that, yes, you can avoid it in almost all cases. You can go get a vocation. You can work
Yeah.
while you're in college and get through most programs. But there are certain instances where student loans are not avoidable in the sense of if
Yeah.
you're, for example, studying medicine or dentistry, you
Yeah.
cannot, there is no way to work when you're
Yeah,
studying
I
those
agree with you.
fields.
I agree.
And oftentimes there are no other options except to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. Here's the problem, though, with that. This is how human nature works. There's this couple, she's a psychologist, and they're both physicians, yeah. And they call the Dave Ramsey show. It's kind of interesting to see how human nature is. They have combined $600,000 in student loans. They're physicians, right? And he says that, but immediately he says, well, but as soon as we're finished, we're going to be making $400,000, 300 or 400, I don't remember. But then, Dave Ramsey said to them, okay, here's the thing. With that kind of income and that kind of debt, it's going to take you about 5 years for you to pay it back. In the meantime, you behave like college students. You have the beat-up Honda, and you just, keep your lifestyle like, you do that for 5 years, and then you are free. Question, is that what people normally do? No. As soon as you're the physician, nobody's going to respect you with your townhouse or your small apartment. You got to go for the big house. You got to go for, you have arrived. You have, you buy the big, that's the problem. People don't normally do that. Why? The status, the embarrassment. What they're going to think, what kind of doctors show up in there, Unfortunately, that's how it happens. Human nature. So, and they say, yeah, we're going to do it. I doubt it they're going to do it. The pressure to succeed is too great. And this is human nature. So, I believe that they can pay it off with $400,000, but then, they have a lifestyle that it is going to take that $400,000 very quickly. Let me give you an example. I'm not talking about doctors here, but this is an example that through the certification we talk a lot about. This family that makes $300,000, not rich according to the American standards, but well-to-do, right? Wrong. They have $1 million in consumer debt. Consumer debt without counting the mortgage. They owe 3 times as much what they make. Country club, trips, clothing, furniture, cars, all that kind of stuff. And then when asked for them, they do, you got to cut back. No, we cannot let the country club go. No, we cannot. We eat out. It's $5,000 a month eating out, but we cannot cut back on that. They don't change the lifestyle. They're in debt 3 times more than what they earn. And they're saying they cannot change the lifestyle. Do you see the trap right there? Many people. And so don't get, wow, look at that person. That doesn't mean anything. I'm not saying there's not rich people in the U.S. Of course there is. But don't get caught up with what you see because that's not it. Show me the money. There's that movie. See, people, show me the debt because that's basically what they have. $1 million? Are you kidding? Making $300,000? Okay. So, continue here. Look at the difference here. No student loan and no car loan. You have money to give, and you have money to save, and you have little money to spend in every single category, not including the credit card because you don't have a credit card. This would be the ideal. And this is what we should aim and trying to teach our kids to do it from the get-go. If we don't want them to be burdened with that for the rest of their lives. Any questions? I wish I could come here and say, do this, now the student loan, the only way out is paying it off. There's no way around it. Even in a bankruptcy, you cannot get rid of it.
I guess this is more of a comment and how you would deal with this, because culturally, debt is another huge thing that is kind of like a family culture debt thing, especially when you're coming from a different country and you
Yeah.
come here, and your kids grow up in the American culture, and then when your family's from another culture, they kind of depend on your kids' credit.
I see.
Does it make sense?
It does
So a
make
lot
sense.
of times, because they're coming here, they don't understand completely how it works. They just use their kids' credit
Wow.
to get a
I know.
car, to get a house, to
Yeah.
do all these different things. And we see this in our family all the time. And we're always trying to advise people and advise family members and stuff like that, but it's really hard because they don't understand what
They
they're
don't see
doing
it.
to their kids' futures.
Evil you that don't want to do that for your parents.
So I'm just putting that out there because I'm pretty
Yeah.
sure we're not the only ones who've
Yeah.
seen this in the cultures.
Uh,
But it's huge because
Yeah.
it's almost a respect to help your elders and your family members, yet it's in a negative tone.
Mm-hmm. It's a negative
So
way.
how would you approach something like this where we're still showing respect but understand and explain that this is not exactly how it works?
The best option. The best option. That's the cultural shock and the generational shock. There is both, components in there. I mean, I am glad that God stopped me on my tracks. I don't know why he did it. Why he said, hey, you financial analyst, how's your finances? You see, he stopped me on my tracks. And I thank God every day because probably I'll be doing all this kind of stuff because that's what everybody does. Thank God. But here's the thing. If you have the knowledge, let's suppose, I know this is hard because we're not teaching here what the world is doing. We know what the world is doing. We're teaching here how God wants us to do it. Would you commit a sin in order to protect or help your loved ones? You wouldn't. This falls into the same thing as if you try to explain. So listen, we don't believe in that, we don't believe in that, we don't believe in having, this credit thing and, but it's ultimately people will reject that. That's not what they want to hear. Sometimes I go to Brazil to teach the seminars and there's flocking people. Why? Because they think I'm there to teach them how to make their first $1 million. Then when they get there, I'm out of here. You see, that's not what it is. So we're teaching what God wants us to do. He wants us to be responsible. Here's again, people will say, yeah, but this is my education. When I'm done with this, I'm going to be making this amount of money, and then I will pay that off. $300,000 in debt? It's not going to happen like this. You will have your living expenses, and it's going to be very little left over for you to pay the debt. And understand, you don't have freedom at that point. You don't have a choice. You have to pay it back. And you cannot take time off, you cannot travel, you cannot just try a ministry or whatever. You are in to pay it off. You have a question? Question over there.
It's like listening to all of those there. It's like if I am a young child, I'm already depressed. I'm afraid to grow up with all of this future financially. It's like as a parent, I worry for my children that they have to carry this burden on how they're going to survive during college and after college and paying all of this. In Asian community, it's different. In the Philippines, it's the parents that carries the burden of the education for their children. And we carry that here in the States, even with all of the student loans and this and that. It's good if the children get those scholarships, and then the parents will pay what the scholarship will not pay. And then that helps them a lot in boosting their morale and their inspiration in going to college and think that they do not have burden after graduating college and they can continue with their life and start without a burden. The parents pays for that because that's what the Asian, at least the Filipino community had instilled in us. And I think if we as a church, as a parents, if we are going to change maybe in that area, we can assist our children that they will not be depressed thinking that they might have lots of loans to pay, or maybe do not kick them out after 18, because what I observe here, after 18 they are required to be kicked out from the house. When they kicked out, that's where they will be looking for a rent, $1,500 for an apartment, for a room. That's already a lot. And if they're going to school, they have to go to work and pay for that, and then for the car. And if we can just extend as parents, because we will be parents forever, why can't they just not stay in their bedroom since they're kids? And they can help in our household work. Maybe they can contribute for the food. And instead of paying those apartments, those cars, those
They
insurance,
don't see it that way.
they can save their money. They save what they make, and then they share what, maybe a little bit in the rest. If we can just show that,
Yeah.
the way we show this, and in that perspective, it
The
will
young
help
people
them a
should have
lot.
been here, but for
Because
some
as a-
reason,
yeah.
it's the parents they're here. But I hear what you're saying. Here's the thing. This is their reality.
This is
And
the
we're not going to
American
be
reality.
here forever. We're not going to be here forever. We
Yeah.
have a section, finances and kids.
Yeah.
We got to teach them. We're going to go over this. You got to teach them. My son, 16-year-old, he knows that, there's debt involved. But I keep telling him this is a joint effort. Joint effort. You're responsible for your grades. You can get a discount for performance, for your GPA performance. The school give them those breaks if they're good students. If they have volunteering opportunities that they have done, if they work, they show they are responsible. The schools, they want this kind of, kids. So our job as a parent is to give them these opportunities, teach them how money works, for them to see, A plus B, that they don't want to finance a car. They don't want, they want to avoid this as much as possible. I'm not saying it's totally avoidable, like he said. But if you can, they're responsible for their grades, which is going to give them a break on the tuition. They're responsible for GPA, which is going to give a break on their tuition. We cash flow some of it and try to borrow the least amount of money possible. I believe this should be a joint effort and not the poor parents paying all of it. Because you don't know what they're going to be doing. They may be just skipping classes. Like this guy here, he did it. And he said that. He paid for that in his high school. He says that in high school, the game is on. Your grades are counting. And he was clowning around. And that, limited his possibilities for college. You see, this is what we need to do. I understand young people, they don't think about these things, but it's our responsibility to keep saying it. It's a joint effort. We're not going to pay 100%, and we're not going to go out there and get loans. I know it's almost impossible because by then they are 18. They can apply for loans. That's the thing. Our job is to teach them. Whatever decisions they make is on them because they can go out and get a credit card. They can do that in a snap. And by then, I understand what you say. Stay at the house so then you don't have to. But here's the thing. Do you want to be living with your parents when you are 18? No, they want to get out of the house like everybody else is.
That's the condition. If they're going to see that
Yeah.
how they can have an advantage in that setting with it.
You can force them. That's the thing. We are in a different country that gives a lot of leeway for 16-year-olds. They have a car. They can drive a car at 16.
There's no risk. They are unreasonable in that time, so they have to make.
You see, at that point, you need to trust and say, it's on you.
Yeah,
Because when they have skin in the game, they're going to think differently.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of personalities in that, on how you brought up also on the children and how the children looks, and in that also it's a multifactorial that results in that in a positive way or a negative way. But I just see a lot of Asian family whose children are very successful in their college because they are not worried about going to work and paying their debts and stuff like that. But of course, teaching responsibility, and you are correct also. So I think it's different temperamental in the family, how they are trained and how they look into if they can see all of this in the tabulation form, and then they can choose. At
They
least
can
there's
make a
different
choice, but
options.
you also have a say. You say you're a student, your transcript, your grades are your
Yes.
resume.
You have a say.
Period.
You have an
You gotta,
objective.
here's the thing, I always tell my son, you say, okay, you can have a bad grade here and there, but you don't want to be in a position that you have to explain poor performance.
Yeah, because
Because you're going to be competing with people that do have good grades. I never want to be behind, like, I'm a person that I think ahead. I never want to be explaining why I took a D. No, I don't want to be in that kind of position, you see? But one thing, let me tell you, that's another thing about here. You can do all the calculations, you can, do all the advice and all of that, but if they messed up in the social media, gone their opportunity for college. If they do strange things on the media, on social media, that's going to be registered forever.
yeah,
Gone. The school's going to, what? They want to have access. Companies hire people based on, I want to see your social media.
yeah.
People can see your social media, even, not going into it. So if they make those kind of mistakes, forget the whole thing.
Exactly, and it's as a parent, it is a scary thing if our children will make one mistake that they are going to suffer the rest
Exactly,
of the
and
year.
this is this day. In our time, you made a mistake, everybody made fun of it. A month later, nobody cared about it.
Yes,
But
and-
here is register forever.
Yeah, it's like when they're 18, they leave.
On
they
the
want-
other hand, we don't see our records of our sins, but everything we do is being faithfully recorded in heaven. See, maybe God is already using this to show them it's being faithfully recorded. Don't think that for a second that what you're doing is not being watched. Got it? We're going to get to let's go to the kids.
Wait a minute, there's one.
Let's go to the finances and kids.
Yes, we just wanted to, I just wanted to speak to you concerning this seminar because it's been so valuable to me. Even this morning's message, you were very convincing for those of us who are looking at that mountain and coming over it, okay? And saying now, I really need to get out of debt. I need to do this. It's important that I do this,
Yeah.
especially in the time in which
We're
we're
living.
living, and we see the handwriting on the wall.
Yeah.
See, and we know we don't have that much time before we're going to be cashless and out of luck and can't buy or sell. At the same time as we're talking about this, you're making so much sense to us who are parents that need to become more enforcers of what children actually do. And I am so happy as I'm sitting here listening to this conversation because I brought two up by myself due to the fact that we had a life-changing death of
Event.
the father, okay? And I put my foot down where it needed to be again and again and again. And I think as you're speaking to us about what God expects us to do, parents need to hear this because God expects us to put our foot down and say, look, this is what we are going to do. Now, when you finish this degree and get out there and get this job that you're going to prove yourself that you're going to make all this money and take on all this debt, because here I am struggling to get you through, then maybe you can make some of these decisions. But to accept these kinds of things while you are yet trying to get these children beyond the point of at least a bachelor's degree, this is not what God expects us to do. See, he expects us to be better stewards by using the skills he's given us and the blessings he's placed in that home. Talk about money and savings so that our children don't come along and squander his blessings.
Exactly.
Because they're yet not at the matured age. Many of them haven't even decided on baptism. They're not at the matured age to make some of these decisions
That's right.
that we are allowing them to make.
That's right.
So we need to pray for each other as
Yeah.
parents. And I am so pleased that I was an enforcer, the police, the sheriff, and everybody else when it came to these decisions. And it was the church See, and the church has to be careful. It was the church that criticized me.
Yeah,
for
you were
being- for
you're the
being
bad mom.
so
Yeah,
ruthless.
so exactly.
Okay?
Poor
it was
kids.
The church. It was the church who went up under what I said and insists, why haven't you moved out yet? Why aren't you married yet? What is the problem? And we have to be conscientious of the fact that that's where Satan works best, right inside. You see, it wasn't the outside people. Why don't you have your own car? Why are you still riding to church with your parent? You know, and these are the type pressures put on young people that young people walk out of these doors and they never want to come back, and they don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear the parents either, because they're passing through a phase where they're rebelling against
Yeah.
authority.
Yeah.
So we must pray for each other.
We got to pray. This is the hardest thing ever, parenting according to God's principles in this time and age. And as soon as you gave them the cell phone, yeah, okay. Okay, we're going to go into the parenting. No, so we have so much to cover, guys. Let me see. An average of 15 of the student loans are in default at any given time. 11% of new graduates default in the first 12 months of repayment. $124.4 billion in student debt is defaulted student loans. Over 1 million student loans enter default each year, not being paid off. Car, the biggest money blunder. Here's the thing. We all know, we all heard about depreciation. And, oh yeah. Okay, thank you. Why is it, I need to learn how to go back to where it was, and I see it's gonna make me go the whole thing again. I don't know how to do that. I remember I used to know how to do it, and I forgot. It's a little bit out of shape. Here's the thing. Vehicle ownership, this is a hard one also, because people realize that everybody knows what depreciation is, right? I'm not gonna have to explain this. You buy your car today at $30,000. In 5 years, right here, 5 years, your car is worth $12,000. So you have 18, you have 18, okay, you buy it at 30,000, and in 5 years, when you finish paying, because people finance it, it's going to be worth about $12,000. That $18,000 of depreciation is basically you paying a $30,000 car and paying your own loss. You're paying for your own loss. We call depreciation because it's cute, but actually what you're taking is a loss. You bought something and you're losing money and you're paying the $30,000. When you finish paying 5 years, you pay $30,000, but your salvage value of the car is $12,000. So you took a major hit of $18,000 in depreciation. So it took a while for us to figure that out. I mean, we always hear about it, but you know, it doesn't ring a bell until you start sitting down and counting the cost. So today we're going to sit down, count the cost visually, so then you can see the cost of owning a car. Let's suppose now here you have a value of $30,000 car. The salvage value is, you know, when you finish paying off is this much here, on average, okay? So you had a depreciation of $18,000. That costs $18,000 of your blood, sweat, and tears for you to own this car for 5 years. In the first year, you lose between 25 to 30% of the value of the car. In the first year, that car will cost 24, and then, you know, that 30,000. You see, but that's the point. You're going to be paying 30,000 all the way through the end, but your car already lost their value in the first year, second year, third year, fourth year, 11th year. I mean, 5th year. So do you see how it doesn't make sense to buy a new car? It does not. If you buy a used car, a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old reliable car, you see your depreciation is already much less, your insurance will be less, and you have more options of affordability to buy a car. And usually the cars in the U.S., they are, you know, reliable, unless it's in a major accident or something. So finally we graduated, we bought our first car in cash, a used car in cash. And we're so proud of ourselves. You see, we graduated. But look at that, how people see things. If you Oh, now let's go for the car payment. Then you're going to buy the car. Of course, you don't have $30,000 at an interest of 4%, term 60 months, which is 5 years. Your payment will be $552, and your interest will be $3,149. The reason, number one, people say they buy, a new car is because they say they don't want to deal with the maintenance. Well, if you cannot deal with the maintenance, you should not have a car. How about that idea to start with? See, because here's it is. If what you're paying in interest, this could be your fund, your emergency fund just for the car. So then every time it breaks, you fix it and you don't have to go into that. And then you will not have this payment in here. And then you can build the emergency fund because you don't have this payment for 5 years. You have higher insurance?
Higher insurance because you have to pay on collision and compensation.
Because
on
it's
the 30
financed, right?
On finance on
Yeah.
the 30.
Yeah, it's higher insurance because, the car is financed.
Right.
You see? And then, you say, oh, you know what? I don't want to, this is how they get you. Once the dealers, they come to you and say, tell me what you can pay per month. You're already behind the game. You're already on the losing side. Because they know you don't have the $30,000, and they're going to say, okay, I can come up with a payment for you. And there it is. In the same car, we're going to increase the term. The payment is lower, but then you're paying more interest, and you still have, these payments here for a long time. Let me tell you this. This is how people think. I had this discussion with this lady, and you know what? I didn't even debate it. That's where she's coming from. She said to me, she had a $2,000 repair needed in the car that is probably 5 years or more. And she said, no, I'm not paying $2,000 for maintenance. I might as well get a new car. So then I can, I don't have to worry about maintenance. But what she doesn't understand is she's going to have this guy here for 5 years. She's never going to be able to build an emergency fund. And when the 5 year, 7 year, whatever comes in, and she has a major repair, guess what she's going to do it again? Financing another car. Because this person did not do what? Sit down and count the cost. When you have this here, if you have this payment, I think I calculated this, in 3 years, you will have enough money to pay a car around here or around here. But nobody wants to wait, right? Nobody wants to do that. Unless you have done sit down the cost, you say, no way, why am I going to pay more for interest? No, I might as well create an emergency fund. When it breaks down, I pay, and that's it. I don't have payments for the next 5 years. But that's not how people think. Is the status. Of course it's fun to have a new car, of course. But this is how much it costs you. Do you see the money blunder in here? Okay. Questions? There's no minutes. I need to, we're not even in the kids yet. Okay, this is the ownership this is the cost of ownership. In 5 years, 50%, almost 50% is depreciation, losing the value of the car. And then 24% is fuel, 11% interest, 10% insurance, maintenance, repair. You see, repair is very little if you have a fund. And there you go. This is how much it costs to have a car. 50% of that car, you're paying to lose money. Oh, money blunder, the house. We'll skip that. This is the house that make us wake up. We had that house in Maryland. We became the slaves to the house. But then I got a nice one. No, it was very simple. It looks fancy, but it wasn't. This was in the country. Here we had 1/4 of an acre. Here we have 7 acres. We have this house. The kids love this house. And we went from less than half of the amount of this house. Less than half. This is how you downsize, as max as you can. But I don't have time for the house. 25% of net pay. Don't borrow more than that. Money blunders, we did it. Look at that, our money blunders. Can you believe we did this? We pay off the house in West Virginia, and I guess we missed the payment. We went in and we bought this. Can I imagine? We bought it on payments. I said, why did we do this? You see, we pay off the house first. We did the hardest thing first. And then we're like, Let's have a trailer. And that was a biggest money blunder because the insurance, the cost, the storage, the memberships, then you have to pay to park this thing in the national park. And I said, why did we buy this? We didn't sit down, we didn't count the cost. And guess what? It was sitting, this was in Tennessee. You see this big garage here is the size of that gym. We never parked this thing in there. Because, you know, it was where the kids play ball and everything. And guess what? We moved to Tennessee because we thought the climate was better. It was the first freezing storm in the last 30 years. And then these 2 trees fell right across, and I was, what a relief. Over. Insurance paid us much more than it was worth. We paid off, and they towed it for us. Thank you, Jesus. We've done the stupid things too, folks. We are not, I'm sorry to say that. We do these moves too. So, and God had mercy on us. Mercy. We did a few trips. The kids love it, but it was such a headache. The more you have, more things you have to do. No, thank you very much. Take it away. I was so happy, you know, when he said they're going to pay the insurance money and it was enough to get rid of it and they're going to take it away. Thank you, Jesus. We've done things like that. That chart, mortgage is the number one. I understand. I'm not saying, you know, the mortgage, yeah, you cannot pay a $200,000 home in cash. Some people do. It's very rare. But you see the layers and layers of that. $14 trillion in 2020, Q4, and here it is. The mortgage, home equity line, auto loan, credit card, student loan, others. Layers upon layers upon layers of debt. It is heartbreaking. I think it's heartbreaking. Okay, let's move on. I'll pass that. I love animals, that's why I do that. Snowball model is very simple. You get a pyramid and you turn it upside down. What you do is, but the interest, here's the thing. Finances is 80% behavior, 20% head knowledge. You may have the knowledge, but that doesn't mean you're going to do what you know is best. So, you go by the smallest amount you owe and you start paying it off. Let's suppose this is $300, so you pay it off. Then the $300 you had in your budget, you apply it in here. And then you're going to pay it off, and then here, and here, and here, and here, and here, and here, until you pay everything. You get the momentum, and then you see the victories, the small victories. I overcame Visa. I overcame MasterCard. I overcame Discovery. I'm going now for the auto loan. Your small victories build the momentum for the next thing. Haven't talked about marriage yet. We're going to have to, everything starts sweet, and then, we get married, and then the bills start coming, and then the disagreements and all of that. I have to go fast now. Finances and marriage. Do two walk together unless they have agreed to do so? Here's the finances, folks. Finances, you got to go in the same direction. You got to be doing in the same direction, because if one's going forward, the one is going backwards. There's a lot of contention, a lot of conflict about, finance. And here's the thing, and people resist the idea of the budget. Oh, this is going to limit me. No, it's going to free you. It's different. You need to put limits for children in order for them to be secure. This is what the budget does. It puts the limit and it frees you from the consequences of financial mismanagement. That's what it does. I'm not going to live like this. Well, you have your own little money here, your allowance here. You don't need to explain what you do. It's your own little money, and your play money is my money here. But then this is what we see, people getting married and divorcing the finances. I don't understand. Taking care of one bank account is a lot of work. And now people have the wife has the account, the husband has the account, they have a third account where they make a contribution in order to pay for the bills, because they don't trust each other financially. And this is one of the issues that the pastors need to address when they are counseling couples, because this is going to be a major thing down the road. Remember the then fiancé of Jonathan's, the example that I used in the morning? She knew what she was getting into. And she made a conscious decision, I'm going to help you. Not like, surprise! I have, $200,000 in student loan, you see, and then you're like, uh-oh, I didn't know that. So these things should be disclosed before marriage. So you make a conscious decision of together tackling that and not surprise, surprise. Aren't you glad? Aren't you glad, Mike? He's quiet. But let's go. Let's keep on going here. Why is that? Men and women, we think different. If you go to Gap to buy a pair of pants, the female takes 3 hours and 26 minutes to do that. The male takes 6 minutes. Men, they take different than us. There's a reason for it. Man, you got to respect how your wife thinks. The way we think is that you're just thinking about the pair of pants. We're thinking about the birthday that's coming up. We're thinking about the thing that we need, to change in the fridge. We're thinking about many things. Many things. When we go to the mall, we're thinking about other people, gifts that we have to buy, things. Oh, I see something that I needed. This is how we think the whole time. That's why it's true. Women need to sleep more because our brains are constantly fired up. Man, they just go for the one Gap thing and go out. Boring, right? But then, I learned, to my experience, this is before I met my husband, I learned how to shop like a man. And I remember when I met him, he invited me to go to a wedding, and I had already paid all my debts and all that kind of stuff. And then I needed to buy, shoes and, purse to go for the wedding. And he said, but it's 15 minutes to close the mall. I said, trust me, in 15 minutes. And then he said, that's the girl for me. This is why, folks, we do this. Respect your women. And then you see guys miserable at TJ Maxx, and the wife is all over the place shopping, and they're miserable waiting. We can see that all the time in the mall, too. Okay, next. This is supposed to be fun, but we are rushing, right? Causes a conflict. Marital neglect. Sometimes people say don't give attention to the spouse and give stuff instead of time. And then, if it affects your budget. Love is blind. Oh, I love you so much. I'll buy anything for you. I'll give you anything you want. The second income trap, that's another thing. As soon as you have the second income, you want to buy bigger house, better cars, because you have the second income. And let me tell you, out of experience, we did a lot more. That's him right there. You can check with him. We did a lot more with less. A lot more with less. Don't ask me to explain. I think it's the blessing of the Lord. I know for sure. The blessing of the Lord, how we change our minds, how he blesses in other ways, because we're willing. All this stuff that we did, the minimalizing was voluntary, not because of circumstances. We voluntarily do that. And then God says, here it is, blessing here, blessing here, blessing here. This is the only explanation for it. Because as soon as you have a second income trap, your income in your mind grows big, and then you start thinking about the next thing that you can buy. Trying to follow fashion and trends. Lack of communication, this is also in finance. Financial infidelity. We got together, this is what we're going to do, right? Yes. Agreed. And then go out and each one start doing whatever they want without consulting. We need to establish an amount of money that any purchase above this amount, we have to reconvene, sit down, go over, and see if we can afford to do it. This is how you resolve the conflict even before it happens. Harmony in differences is exactly what I say. We think differently. We are different people, men and women. We're different. We think differently, and we complement each other. One is the spender, one is the more conservative. It's always that way, and that's why you are together, for you to help each other out. Harmony in differences. Kids' financial education. Finally, we got here. I think this is one of the highlights. We have seen that people have responded to this a lot because of the kids. When do you start teaching your kids finances? By the minute they know how to count from 1 to 10. They know how to do this, 3, 4 years of age. That's when you start teaching. And this is what we did with our kids. The very best legacy which parents can leave their children is a knowledge of useful labor and the example of a life characterized by disinterested benevolence. By such a life, they show the true value of money. that is only to be appreciated for the good they will accomplish in relieving their own wants, basic necessities, the necessity of others, helping others, and the advancement of the cause. 3, for the Christian, that's what the money is for. Your basic needs, education, clothing, food, shelter, whatever, and relieving the wants of others. You gotta have money to help others or sponsor other causes, and the advancement of the cause of God. In the hand of the Christian, that's what the money is for. Your 90%, I don't know if you're here in the morning, the tithe is not play money. It belongs also to the Lord. When very young, this is what Ellen White says, children should be educated to read, to write, to understand figures, to keep their own accounts. They may go forward, advancing step by step in this knowledge, progressive knowledge. But before everything else, they should be taught the fear of the Lord is the beginning of the wisdom. We start with God, finances with God. We start with God, and then you start, them teaching them very young. We started teaching our kids at the age of 4. No to parents. That's what we owe to our children. A Christian home where they're going to see Christianity being practiced. Appreciation for useful labor. You got to make them help in the house. Everybody gets benefited, so therefore everybody cooperates. And a solid holistic education, not only education on books, but practical education. It's your money, isn't it? It's in the book of Edward Reed. He was the former director of the stewardship division of the North American division. So he wrote in that book, very simple. This is what we owe to our children. The $200 sneaker is not your responsibility. It's their responsibility. You wanted that, you have to work for it. My son buys the $200 sneakers with his own money. Sorry, we give you the basic food, basic clothing. But you want brand names? It's on you. You want the expensive gear? It's on you. Because we are already giving the roof, the education, the food, the clothing, the basic. That extra is on you. And they do this. Useful work. That's Jonathan. He is the gardener. He loves gardening. You got to put them to do useful work. This is Nathan, cooking, gardening, carrying wood. They do this when they were young. Right here it was going to rain. I say, you guys get off bed. They are wearing their pajamas. It's going to rain. You got to put the wood because we got to heat the house with the wood. So just get out and I'll take care of breakfast and you do that. Okay? Okay. You got to put them to work. He's kind of splitting wood in here. Nathan cooking, mowing the lawn. I mean, we try a little business, but it didn't take off because we're in the country. In the country, people don't hire people to do that. Mulching, cooking, gardening. You got to put them to work when they're very young. This house is a firm. Everybody works here. The mother is not the slave. The father is not the provider to meet all of your needs. We all work as a team. This is how we started. Of course, when they are very young, we started this jar, little process with tithe and offering, saving expenses. They have their little chores. They made the money, and they split the money. I had to get the money already split, in $1 bills. And this is how we started. Jonathan was 3 years old, but Nathan was already into it, so Jonathan wanted to follow up on that one. And, you see right here, there's a little cross that said, this is the money for the church, for Jesus, for God, and this is your expenses, then this is the savings, right here. Visually, they were young. They didn't have accounts or anything like that, but they needed to visualize that they were working, they were getting paid, and they had to separate the money and give the money and all of that. This is a work that we did. It's a lot of work. You have to have the money, split and all of that and do the splitting, but this is how we started. And it pays off later on. I'll tell you why. Nathan bought his first Lego, his own money, his own work. Look at the happiness. But why did that work? I'll tell you the secret. And I know it's sad, but it's true. we were. All the people in the Bible that God wanted to do something different with them, God isolated them. Joseph, Moses, Ruth, Esther, David, everybody. You're gonna do something, I gotta take you out of your kindred. And that's why there were no influences, outside influences. So they were happy as they could be to buy their own thing, without seeing others getting all the big stuff that we could not afford to give. And you see, he paid, I made them pay for their own thing. They were customers, paying customers, and that's what they did, you see. And this is how it starts, look at that, at the level of his eyes, you see, right here, is at the level of his eyes. This is for a reason. But here it is, a customer paying for his own, and there were people in the back, very upset about it, but he's a customer, and he's making his own purchase. And then, they start, Jonathan in his own category, he made less money because he was younger, but he bought most of his Hot Wheels with his own money. Learning by practicing. This is Nathan's birthday. He was 10 years of age when he bought his first lawnmower, the fancy one. He bought a first one for $150. He started doing some jobs in the community, made money, saved the money, and then he realized that they're fancier machines, they were more efficient. So he saved the money for a whole year to buy a Husqvarna. It was his birthday, short a little bit. We gave $50 to complete, and he bought his lawnmower for his business. He was 10 years of age. And then learning by practicing. There's no way to learn how to drive a car without driving the car. You have to drive. You have to use the money. And Nathan had a very painful experience. He had money, and guys, they want to got money. All of that, he lost his wallet. That was painful. He had stuff in that he had been saving for a whole year. And it happened twice to him, and then, he eventually said, Mom, I'm not at the age that I can handle this. And then I found out that there is a debit card, very good through an app, Greenlight, very good. You can put the money in there, and they buy their own stuff, the money that they work for. Here, Jonathan's buying a birthday present for his brother. You see, and this is how they manage their money. We get notifications every time they spend on something, we get notifications, so we know where the money is going to. And they buy now their sneakers and their stuff. Jonathan's a little bit more limited because of his age and the level of income. Nathan worked. He worked the whole summer, and, he can buy his stuff because he has the income. And then, this is the Dave Ramsey program for teenagers. There is one program for elementary, and there's one program for high school. And they did the program last summer because we were in a pandemic. We were in the lockdown. And I said, you guys use this time in order to learn this stuff. And it really is very done for them. And then they realize the interest, the long-term, investment, mutual funds, insurance, everything. For the high school, they covered everything. Probably they don't remember because that's how kids are, but you do a refresher course. This is how you do with kids. Coming to an end, divine promise, whereby we're giving unto us exceeding great and precious promises, that by this we might be partakers of the divine nature, having escaped the corruption that is in the world through lust, covetousness. And wherefore, the rather, brethren, give diligence to make your calling election sure, for if you do these things, you shall never fall. This applies to the finances. You got to put this into practice. You got to apply this. Here's what I have. I have, cards here. This is as a ministry. I do this. If you know anybody that needs this kind of work in their church, here's my card. This is not the business. This is the ministry. I do this voluntary work. This, what I'm doing here, is voluntary. And then, what we're going to do is, the next step is this. I have a website and everything, Instagram and all the kind of stuff. I keep putting stuff in there. Don't have much time now. But here's what we're going to do after this. If you found any value into this, we are going to bring here Financial Peace University. This is the program, the Dave Ramsey program, to help you get out of debt, to help you, pay off whatever you need to pay off. And, it really is kind of a lot of fun. We have done it twice. We did it twice. Yeah, we did it twice. And it's very good. It gives you momentum. It shows you he's very funny. And it's very good. So I'm going to be hosting this for the church. This is voluntary work. We're going to meet either through here or through Zoom. And it's 9 weeks, the program. And we meet once a week. And it's a lot of fun to do this. If you're interested, it's Bible-based, faith-based, it's not much as ours is, but, faith-based, but it's following God's principles. If you want to participate, you put your name and your email in here and your telephone number, and here's how it works. If you're interested, you have to go to their dashboard. I'm going to give you the invitation. You give me the information, I'll give you the invitation. You get through the dashboard, get the materials, and then we start, going, live with the Financial Peace University, helping it. It's more like a support group. They're going to be teaching everything. And you're going to be doing the exercises. And we're going to meet to talk about our progress and the areas that we're struggling, to encourage each other, to help each other. If you have, any interest, you put your name in here, in your, name, email address, and number, in case I don't understand the handwriting. And we're gonna, do this as soon as, people are ready. If you feel like this is the time and God is calling you to get your finance house in order, this is the time. We're short in time. The enemy knows that. He wants us to be in shackles, and we're saying today no to him. Not anymore.
I just want to add to the Financial Peace seminar. This is also something we want to use as a way to reach the community. And like I mentioned a couple of times, this is something that the community told us that they have a need for. But they don't know that we have this program that we have the ability to help them with. So it's us as church members, and those of you who are online and listening as well, to help us market it out there. Tell your coworkers, tell your neighbors, your friends, your families, hey, my church is actually having a financial peace, thing to help you learn how to improve, during these times, because people are struggling and they need help. They don't know where to go.
Yeah.
And the whole point is for our church to be that resource, that lighthouse, that they can be like, hey, that church always has really good resources that I can depend on. And this is one of those things that we can do for our community. So we'll be talking a lot about it when we figure out the dates so we can start marketing it. So yes, we need it too, because we need to know what to do. And it'll be a lot easier for us to be able to share that information, but we can also reach out to other people in the community for it.
And another thing I want to tell you, this is not the end of it. Finances is a journey. You always learn, you're always growing. As long as you have money coming into your hands, you have to manage. So it's a journey, and that's why we did it twice. And sometimes when we relax a little bit, we start making mistakes, and because this is human nature. So that's why we want to be engaged, involved, because this helps us too.
And just like in most churches, we have people who are counselors for mental health. We have medical people. We have medical people who are helping us with our health. Well, we also need financial ministries that can help us in those ways too. So we definitely want to build up, because there's so much talent in this church that we want to be able to use that talent to not only help our church grow, but help the community as well.
And what I think is also, there's a level of, for some reason, embarrassment. You should not be embarrassed. This is the country struggling. It's teaching us this lie of the economy of credit when there is another way. There is another way. It's just you need to be willing. You need to, okay, God is going to show me. God, Jesus Christ, and the Holy Spirit, they're the best financial advisors you can have, because they're going to point you from point A to point B. What is that you have to do? Once you act in faith, He start building, the momentum. Go ahead.
Can you tell your email to those online so that they can, if they're interested?
Yes. How do I do that?
So just say it out loud.
Okay.
So they can
Email
hear.
is financeswithgod, www.financeswithgod.com.
That's the
Is a website. Oh, you need the email. The email, you can send it to our email is Rejane, R-E-J-A-N-E, Rejane, N as in Nancy, Michael, M-I-C-H-A-E-L, @yahoo.com. Rejane N. Michael @yahoo.com. Yeah. So, what do I do? Should I
So
type it in here?
Reland's going to prepare a slide so it
Yeah.
can show up
Yeah,
on the
yes.
YouTube.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, I just want to thank everybody who came out here and stayed the whole day with us and to hear all about this. And I thank you for those who are watching online as well. I believe because it's on YouTube, it should be recorded because I know there's a lot of people who wanted to stay and couldn't. So hopefully they'll be able to go back. And if
Yes.
you're open, you know, having that
can change the
email
color.
for
Yeah,
everybody,
exactly.
then maybe
Yeah.
she would be able
Yeah.
to answer more questions that people are going to have that we weren't able to get to. So for those of you who have questions, please feel free to email them, and they will be able to just answer as best as they can.
Yeah. And Financial Peace University is a lot of fun, and we support each other. You are not to share your numbers, but you share your progress, and we celebrate that. It's a lot of fun. We've done it twice, and I miss it again because, and we are hosting this. There is a cost, but it's very minimum for what you're getting, and you know we can talk about that later. You will not regret. You know, if you can say no forever to this lie that we have been, you know, told that we need to do it that way. So we can change things. We don't have to accept what the world is telling us. So,
Yeah, I'm sure we all have testimonies of how God has helped us. So let's just bow our heads. Actually, let's stand. We've been sitting for a
Yeah.
while.
yeah.
All right, let's bow our heads for prayer. Dear gracious and heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this Sabbath day of just sitting down and really learning more about what you want for us, guidelines that you have for us in our finances, Lord. Thank you so much for speaking through Rejane, Lord, as she just taught us so much that we need to do, Lord. And help us not to discourage by listening to this, but to encourage us, to give us
Amen.
hope that there
Amen.
is a way to get out of debt and to manage our finances and to improve our life, our quality of life, Lord, so that we can focus more on ministry and to represent you in the community, Lord. Thank you so much. Be with those who are struggling financially right now, Lord. There's so many that are, and I just pray that you will be able to touch their lives in a specific way and help us to be a light for you, Lord, in the community as we try to share this knowledge with them as well. Thank you so much for all that you do for us, Lord. Guide us and protect each of us as we go home to our separate homes, Lord, and to re-meet here again next Sabbath. We love you, we thank you, we honor you with everything, including our finances, Lord. Amen.
Amen. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you. Thank you, guys.